The war fleet drifted quietly through the endless blackness of space, its engines humming softly as it moved farther from Earth than any human ship had ever gone before. Captain Daniel Cross stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, staring out at the vast expanse of stars. He was a man who rarely showed doubt, but something about this mission felt wrong. The silence around them wasn't just empty. It was heavy, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Behind him, Lieutenant Karen Hayes adjusted her glasses and studied the glowing screen in front of her. She was a scientist, not a soldier, and she preferred numbers and data over weapons and strategy. But here she was, light years from home, trying to make sense of strange energy readings that didn't match anything in their databases. "There's something ahead," Karen said, breaking the quiet. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that caught the attention of everyone on the bridge. "It's faint, but it's definitely artificial." Captain Cross turned away from the viewport and walked over to her station. His boots clicked against the metal floor. "Artificial? Are you sure?" Karen nodded. "Yes, sir. Whatever it is, it's big. Bigger than anything we've encountered before." Ryan Cole, the ship's chief engineer, leaned forward from his seat nearby. His arms were crossed, and his expression was skeptical. "Big doesn't mean dangerous. Could just be some old piece of junk floating out here. Or it could be exactly why we're here," Cross replied sharply. His tone made it clear he didn't want excuses or doubts right now. This mission was too important. They'd been sent to find an ancient alien artifact rumored to hold technology far beyond humanity's understanding. If they found it, Earth would no longer be vulnerable to threats from other civilizations. But if they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. As the fleet approached the source of the signal, the object came into view on their screens. It was enormous, a massive structure shaped like a flattened sphere, with intricate patterns etched across its surface. It looked like a ship, but unlike any ship they'd ever seen. Its design was sleek yet alien, with sharp angles and glowing lines that pulsed faintly in the darkness. "That thing has to be miles wide," Ryan muttered under his breath. Even he couldn't hide his awe completely. No signs of life, Lisa Bennett reported from her communication station. Her fingers danced across the controls as she scanned for signals. "But I'm picking up residual energy. Whatever this is, it hasn't been active for a long time." Cross studied the image on the main screen for a moment longer. Then he gave the order. "Prepare a boarding party. We're going in." Karen hesitated. "Sir, shouldn't we run more scans first? We don't know what we're dealing with." "We'll scan while we're inside," Cross said firmly. "Time is critical. If this is what we've been looking for, every second counts." The boarding team assembled quickly, suiting up in their protective gear. Karen joined them reluctantly, clutching her tablet tightly. She didn't like leaving the safety of the ship, but her expertise might be needed if they encountered anything technological. Ryan tagged along too, grumbling about how much he hated spacewalks. When they reached the alien structure, they found an entrance, a jagged opening that looked almost like a wound in the ship's side. Inside, the air was stale and cold, and the walls shimmered with faint otherworldly light. Strange symbols covered every surface, twisting and curling in ways that made Karen's head ache just looking at them. "This place gives me the creeps," Ryan whispered as they stepped deeper into the corridor. Karen ignored him, already snapping pictures and running scans. Something about those symbols tugged at her mind, like fragments of a forgotten memory. She couldn't explain it, but she knew one thing for certain: whoever, or whatever, had built this ship hadn't wanted visitors. And yet, here they were. The deeper they ventured into the alien ship, the stranger it became. The corridors twisted and turned in ways that didn't seem natural, as if the builders had no concept of straight lines or logic. Faint hums echoed through the walls, though none of the humans could tell if it was machinery or something else entirely. Karen kept her eyes glued to her tablet, trying to make sense of the symbols etched into every surface. They were unlike any language she'd ever seen, but there was a pattern to them, a rhythm that felt almost alive. "This place is giving me a headache," Ryan said, rubbing his temples. He was walking slower now, his usual confidence replaced by unease. "Are we sure this thing isn't going to collapse on us?" "It's stable enough," Karen replied without looking up. Her voice was distracted, her focus completely on the task at hand. She stopped suddenly, pointing at one section of the wall where the symbols glowed brighter than the rest. "Look at this." Captain Cross stepped closer, his boots clicking against the smooth floor. "What is it?" "I think it's a warning," Karen said slowly. She tapped on her tablet, running a quick analysis. "These symbols repeat over and over again. I can't translate all of it yet, but one phrase keeps coming up. No one was meant to arrive." Ryan frowned. "Meant to arrive where?" "Here. This dump." "Maybe." Karen hesitated, then added, "Or maybe it means no one was supposed to find the ship at all." Cross crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "We're here now. That changes things. Keep going." They moved forward cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The air grew colder with each step, and the faint hums turned into low vibrations that rattled their teeth. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a large chamber. The room was filled with strange machines, their shapes jagged and unfamiliar. In the center stood a massive console covered in more glowing symbols. "This has to be important," Karen whispered, her voice tinged with excitement. She approached the console carefully, her fingers hovering above its surface. "If I can figure out how to activate it, we might learn why this ship was built. And who built it." Ryan groaned. "Of course you want to poke around in the creepy alien control panel. What could possibly go wrong?" Karen shot him a glare. "Do you have a better idea?" Before Ryan could answer, Lisa spoke up from the back of the group. She'd been quiet until now, clutching her scanner tightly. "Guys, we've got a problem." Everyone turned to look at her. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled slightly. "I'm picking up movement. Something's waking up." At first, nothing happened. Then, a low whirring sound began to fill the chamber. The machines around them shuddered to life, their lights flickering on one by one. From the shadows emerged small, insect-like drones with sharp metal legs and glowing red eyes. They skittered across the floor, moving unnaturally fast. "Get behind me," Cross barked, drawing his weapon. The rest of the team followed suit, their guns aimed at the advancing drones. Karen backed away from the console, her heart pounding. "I didn't do anything. I swear." "Doesn't matter now," Ryan snapped, firing a shot at one of the drones. It exploded in a burst of sparks, but two more took its place. "We need to get out of here." "No," Karen shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "That console, it's the key. If we leave, we'll lose our chance to understand this place. And if we stay, we'll lose our lives." Ryan yelled back, ducking as another drone lunged toward him. Cross hesitated for a split second, torn between retreat and discovery. Then he made his decision. "Karen, give me 10 seconds. After that, we're leaving." Karen nodded quickly and rushed back to the console. Her fingers flew over the surface, pressing symbols in rapid succession. The hums grew louder, and the entire chamber began to shake. The drones paused momentarily, as if confused by the sudden surge of energy. "Got it," Karen cried, stepping back just as the console erupted in a blinding flash of light. "Move," Cross ordered, grabbing Karen's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The team sprinted down the corridor, the drones hot on their heels. Behind them, the chamber collapsed in a shower of sparks and debris. When they finally reached the boarding ramp, they scrambled aboard their shuttle, slamming the hatch shut behind them. Ryan collapsed onto a seat, breathing heavily. "Next time, let's not wake up the angry alien robots, okay?" Karen didn't respond. She stared out the window at the massive structure, her mind racing. Whatever secrets the ship held, They weren't done with humanity yet. The shuttle rocketed away from the alien ship, its engines roaring as it sped back toward the safety of the human fleet. Inside, the team sat in tense silence, their adrenaline slowly fading but their nerves still on edge. Karen clutched her tablet tightly, replaying what had happened in her mind. The symbols she'd activated on the console, they weren't random. She was certain of it. Whatever she'd triggered, it had been intentional. But intentional for what? Captain Cross stood near the front of the shuttle, his arms crossed and his jaw tight. He stared out the viewport at the massive structure growing smaller behind them. "Report," he said sharply, breaking the quiet. Karen looked up, startled by the sudden demand. I managed to access part of the system before we had to leave. It wasn't fully operational, but I think I unlocked something important. Maybe a database or a log." "And?" Cross pressed, turning to face her. "And I don't know yet." Karen hesitated, glancing down at her tablet. "The language is complex. It'll take time to translate. But there's one thing I'm sure of. The builders of this ship called themselves the Valith." Ryan snorted from his seat. "Great. Another dead civilization. Just what we needed." "It's not just that," Karen shot back, her voice rising slightly. "From what I saw, the Valith were advanced, far beyond us. They built this ship as some kind of repository. Maybe for knowledge, maybe for power. But they also left warnings. That phrase kept repeating. No one was meant to arrive. Something about this place is dangerous. Deadly, even." Lisa, who had been unusually quiet since they escaped, spoke up softly. "Do you think those drones were supposed to attack us? Or were they just defending?" "Does it matter?" Ryan muttered. "Either way, they tried to kill us." Cross held up a hand, silencing the argument before it could escalate. "Enough. We'll analyze everything once we're back aboard the fleet. For now, focus on staying alive." As the shuttle docked with the flagship, the crew disembarked quickly, heading straight for the command center. There, Karen spread out her notes on a large table, projecting images of the symbols and data she'd collected onto the walls. The rest of the bridge staff gathered around, watching intently as she explained her findings. "The Valith didn't just build this ship as a storage unit," Karen said, pointing to a series of diagrams she pieced together. "It's more like a weapon, a failsafe. From what I can tell, they created it to protect themselves, or maybe to destroy their enemies." "That's comforting," Ryan said sarcastically, leaning against the wall. "So we've stumbled into an ancient alien death trap." "Perfect." Karen ignored him, continuing her explanation. "There's more. The energy readings I picked up earlier, they're increasing. Whatever I activated, it's still running. And if we don't figure out how to control it, it could destabilize the entire ship." Cross frowned, his brow furrowing. "How long do we have?" "I don't know," Karen admitted. "Hours? Days? Maybe less. The systems are unstable. If we push them too far, they might overload." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the ship. Red lights flashed, and the crew scrambled to their stations. On the main screen, a swarm of unknown vessels appeared, emerging from hyperspace like shadows tearing through the void. "They're here," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. The krill fleet surrounded the human ships, their sleek, predatory designs bristling with weapons. A single transmission crackled through the comms, harsh and guttural. "You have trespassed in sacred space. Surrender now, or be annihilated." Cross clenched his fists, his expression hardening. Not a chance. The room fell silent as the humans prepared for battle. Karen glanced at the screen, then back at her notes. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Valith ship, and the warnings etched into its walls, were connected to the krill somehow. But there was no time to think about that now. All she could do was hope they survived long enough to find out. The human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned. The krill ships moved with terrifying speed, their sleek designs slicing through space like blades. Each vessel bristled with weapons that glowed ominously, ready to unleash destruction. On the bridge of the flagship, Captain Cross stood firm, his eyes locked on the main screen. His voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. All hands, prepare for combat. Shields up. Divert power to the cannons. Karen gripped the edge of her console, her heart pounding. She wasn't trained for battle, but she knew their survival depended on everyone doing their part. Around her, the crew scrambled to follow orders. Ryan worked furiously at his station, rerouting energy to keep the ship's systems running. Lyssa monitored communications, trying to find any weakness in the Krill's formation. "Sir," Lisa said suddenly, her voice tight with urgency. "They're hailing us again." Cross nodded. "Put it on screen." The face of a Krill commander appeared, a tall, insect-like creature with glowing green eyes and sharp, jagged features. Its voice hissed through the speakers. "You have trespassed where no one was meant to arrive. Your presence here is an insult to the Vailith and their legacy. Surrender now, or face annihilation." Karen's stomach twisted. The mention of the Vailith confirmed her suspicions. These creatures had some connection to the ancient builders of the megaship. But before she could say anything, Cross responded firmly. "We are not your enemy. We came seeking knowledge, not conflict. Leave us be, or you will regret it." The Krill commander let out a harsh, guttural laugh. "You dare threaten us? You are nothing but vermin. Prepare to die." The transmission cut off, and moments later, the Krill fleet opened fire. Bright beams of energy streaked across space, slamming into the human ship's shields. Alarms blared as the flagship rocked from the impact. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and several crew members stumbled to stay on their feet. Shields holding at 60%. Ryan shouted over the chaos. "But we can't take many more hits like that." "We need an advantage," Cross muttered, his mind racing. He turned to Karen. "Is there anything in that alien ship we can use against them?" Karen hesitated, her mind flashing back to the symbols and data she'd barely begun to decipher. There might be something. The Vailith built defensive systems into the ship. If I can interface with them remotely, we might be able to turn their own technology against the Krill. "Do it," Cross ordered without hesitation. "Ryan, give her whatever she needs." Ryan groaned under his breath, but didn't argue. He pulled up a secondary console next to Karen and started feeding her raw data from the alien ship's systems. Karen's fingers flew across the keyboard, her focus razor-sharp despite the chaos around her. The faint hum of the alien technology grew louder as she worked, sensing the Vailith ship's defenses with the human fleet. "They're charging another volley," Lisa warned. "Brace for impact." The second wave of attacks hit hard, shaking the ship violently. Consoles sparked, and the lights flickered. A nearby officer fell to the floor, clutching a burned arm. Karen ignored the commotion, her eyes glued to her screen. Finally, a message appeared. "Connection estabilized." "I've got it," she exclaimed. "I'm activating the Vailith drones. They'll target the Krill ships." The room fell silent for a moment as everyone waited. Then, from the darkness of space, the alien drones emerged, not just the small ones they'd encountered earlier, but massive, spider-like machines armed with devastating weapons. They swarmed toward the Krill fleet, firing pulses of energy that tore through their shields. "It's working," Ryan shouted, a grin spreading across his face. "Their ships are breaking apart." The tide of the battle shifted quickly. The Krill, caught off guard by the sudden counterattack, scrambled to retreat. Their once unstoppable fleet began to falter, their ships exploding one by one. On the bridge, the human crew erupted into cheers, but Cross remained focused. "Don't celebrate yet," he said sharply. "We don't know what those drones are capable of. If they turn on us next, we're finished." Karen nodded, her excitement tempered by caution. "I'll try to shut them down after the Krill are gone, but I'm not sure I can control them completely." As the last of the Krill ships flowed into hyperspace, The drones hovered silently in space, their red eyes glowing ominously. For now, they seemed inactive, but Karen couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching, waiting. Whatever the Valith had created, it wasn't truly theirs to command. The battle was over, but the victory felt hollow. The human fleet floated in silence among the wreckage of Krill ships, their own vessels battered and scarred. Smoke filled the corridors of the flagship, and the hum of emergency systems replaced the usual steady thrum of the engines. On the bridge, the crew worked quickly to assess the damage. Some patched up injured teammates, while others tried to stabilize failing systems. Despite the chaos, one thing was clear: they had survived. Karen sat at her station, her hands trembling as she stared at the screen. The Valith drones still hovered in space, motionless for now, but their presence loomed like a storm about to break. She had managed to sever the connection between the drones and the human fleet, but she wasn't sure how long it would hold. "We can't trust them," she muttered under her breath. "They're not done with us." Captain Cross approached her, his face lined with exhaustion. "What's the status?" he asked, his voice low but firm. "They're inactive. For now," Karen replied, glancing up at him. "But I don't know how long that will last. Those drones were built by the Valith as weapons. If they decide we're a threat, they'll turn on us next." Cross frowned, staring out at the drones through the viewport. "Then we need to leave. Now." Ran, who had been repairing a damaged console nearby, shook his head. "Not all of us are going anywhere. Half our ships are barely holding together. We can't jump to hyperspace like this." "We don't have a choice," Cross snapped. "If those drones wake up again, we're dead. Start prepping the engines. We'll tow any ships that can't make the jump." Karen hesitated, then spoke up. "There's something else. Before the Krill attacked, I was trying to access the Valith database. I think there's more information about why this ship was built, and why the Krill were so desperate to keep us away." Cross turned to her, his expression unreadable. "How long would it take?" "Hours, maybe days," Karen admitted. "I'd need to go back aboard the alien ship and finish decoding the data." "No," Cross said immediately. "It's too dangerous. We've already risked enough." "But sir," Karen began, her voice rising slightly. "No," Cross repeated firmly. "Our priority is getting these people home. Whatever secrets are on that ship, they'll have to wait." Karen fell silent, frustration bubbling inside her. She knew he was right. The fleet couldn't afford another delay, but the thought of leaving without answers gnawed at her. What if the Valith ship held the key to humanity's survival? What if they never got another chance? As the crew worked to prepare for departure, Lisa limped over to Karen's station. Her arm was bandaged from an injury during the battle, but her eyes were sharp. "You really think there's more to find out there?" she asked quietly. Karen nodded. "I do. The Valith didn't just build a weapon. They left warnings everywhere. This ship, it's part of something bigger, something we don't understand yet." Lisa glanced toward Cross, who was barking orders at the engineering team. "He won't let you go back. Not after everything that's happened." "I know," Karen said softly. "But maybe I don't need his permission." Before Lisa could respond, alarms blared again, cutting through the tension. Everyone froze, their eyes darting to the main screen. The drones, which had been floating silently moments before, now began to move. Their red eyes flared brighter, and their metal legs twitched as if waking from a deep sleep. "They're powering up," Ryan shouted, scrambling back to his station. "Shields are down to 20%. We can't take another hit." Cross clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. "All ships, prepare to retreat. Now." Karen stared at the screen, her mind racing. There had to be a way to stop the drones, to shut them down completely. But time was running out. As the first drone turned its glowing gaze toward the flagship, she made a decision. Without a word, she grabbed her tablet and bolted for the door. "Karen." Lisa called after her, but Karen didn't stop. She knew what she had to do. Karen moved quickly through the corridors of the flagship, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't have time to explain herself or ask for permission. The drones were waking up, and if she didn't act fast, everyone would die. Her tablet buzzed in her hand as she ran, its screen glowing faintly with fragments of the Violet language she had been decoding. Somewhere in that data was the key to shutting down the drones permanently, or so she hoped. Reaching the airlock, Karen hesitated for a moment. Going back to the alien ship alone was risky, but staying here meant waiting for death. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting someone to stop her. When no one came, she stepped into the airlock and sealed the door behind her. The shuttle ride to the alien megaship felt endless. Karen gripped the controls tightly, her mind racing. She replayed every symbol, every fragment of data she'd seen on the Violet console. There had been references to something called the core, a central system that controlled all functions of the ship. If she could reach it, maybe she could disable the drones once and for all. When she docked at the alien ship, the silence inside hit her like a wall. The cold air wrapped around her, making her shiver despite her suit. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed faintly, almost as if they were alive. Karen forced herself to focus. She followed the path she remembered from before, moving deeper into the labyrinthine corridors until she reached the chamber with the massive console. Her hands trembled as she activated the console again. Lines of alien script scrolled across the screen, faster than she could read them. But this time, she wasn't just guessing. She pieced together fragments of meaning, tracing connections between symbols. Slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge. The core, Karen whispered to herself, pointing at a specific set of symbols. It's the source of everything. The drones, the warnings, the energy readings. If I shut it down. But then she froze. Another phrase caught her eye, repeated several times in the text. To silence the core is to awaken the void. What did that mean? Was the core keeping something worse at bay? She didn't have time to think about it. The hum of the ship grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath her feet. The drones were fully awake now, and they were heading straight for the human fleet. Karen took a deep breath and made her choice. She tapped a sequence of symbols on the console, bracing herself for what might happen next. The room shook violently as the core began to power down. Lights flickered, and the glowing lines on the walls dimmed. For a moment, everything went still. Then, the entire ship groaned like a living thing in pain. The walls seemed to twist and warp, and the air grew heavier. Karen stumbled back, her tablet slipping from her hand. A low, rumbling sound filled the chamber, growing louder by the second. Whatever she had done, it wasn't over yet. Back on the flagship, the crew watched in stunned silence as the drone suddenly stopped moving. Their red eyes dimmed, and their metal limbs collapsed lifelessly. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but they were short-lived. Moments later, sensors detected a massive energy spike coming from the alien ship. "What's happening?" Cross demanded, his voice sharp with alarm. "I don't know, sir," Lisa replied, her fingers flying over her console. "But something big is about to happen." On the main screen, the alien ship began to collapse inward, its surface cracking and folding like paper. From within, a swirling vortex of light emerged, growing larger and brighter with each passing second. Karen stared at the vortex, her mind blank with shock. She had disabled the core, but in doing so, she had unleashed something far more dangerous. The void was awake. The vortex in the alien ship grew brighter, its edges rippling like liquid fire. Karen stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat. She had thought shutting down the core would stop the drones and save the fleet. But now, she realized she might have made things far worse. The void wasn't just a phrase in the Violet language. It was real, and it was alive. "What have I done?" Karen whispered, her voice barely audible over the deafening roar of energy surging through the chamber. The floor beneath her feet trembled violently, and cracks began to spread across the walls. The entire structure felt like it was being pulled apart from within. Back on the flagship, Captain Cross watched the chaos unfold on the main screen. The alien ship was collapsing, consumed by the swirling vortex that seemed to warp space itself. "Get me a status report," he barked, his eyes darting between the crew members scrambling at their stations. "It's some kind of singularity," Lisa said, her voice shaking as she studied the readings. "It's destabilizing everything around it. If we don't leave now, we'll be dragged in too." Ryan cursed under his breath, his hands flying over the controls. "Engines are still damaged. We can't jump to hyperspace yet." Cross clenched his fists, his mind racing. "Prepare all remaining ships for immediate departure. Divert every ounce of power to the engines. We're not waiting any longer." Karen finally snapped out of her daze. She couldn't stay here, not if she wanted to survive. Grabbing her tablet from the ground, she turned and ran toward the docking bay where her shuttle was parked. The corridors were crumbling around her, chunks of metal falling from the ceiling as the ship continued to collapse. Her suit's oxygen levels flashed a warning. Whatever the void was doing, it was sucking the air right out of the ship. Reaching the shuttle felt like an eternity. By the time she climbed inside and sealed the hatch, the alien megaship looked like it was being torn apart piece by piece. The vortex pulsed with blinding light, its pull growing stronger with each passing second. Karen fired up the shuttle's engines and shot out of the docking bay just as the entrance collapsed behind her. On the flagship, Cross spotted Karen's shuttle on the sensors. "There's one more coming in," he said, relief flickering across his face. "Bring her aboard." As Karen's shuttle docked, she stumbled onto the bridge, her body trembling with exhaustion. Everyone stared at her, waiting for answers. Cross stepped forward, his expression hard. "What did you do?" "I shut down the core," Karen said, her voice shaky. "But there was something else, something the Valith warned about. The void. It's what they were trying to contain. And now it's free." Before anyone could respond, the flagship rocked violently as the vortex's gravitational pull intensified. Alarms screamed throughout the ship, and the lights flickered wildly. On the main screen, the alien ship imploded completely, disappearing into a black hole-like anomaly that continued to expand. "We need to move," Ryan shouted, slamming his fist against his console. "Now. All ships, retreat," Cross ordered over the comms. Full burn. The human fleet surged forward, their engines straining against the immense force pulling them back. For a moment, it seemed like they wouldn't make it. The void's pull was relentless. But then, with a final burst of speed, the flagship broke free, followed by the rest of the surviving ships. Behind them, the vortex shrank slowly, its glow fading until it vanished entirely. The bridge fell silent as the fleet drifted in the emptiness of space. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Cross turned to Karen, his voice heavy with both anger and resignation. "You saved us from the drones, but at what cost? What exactly did you unleash?" Karen shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know, but if the Valith were afraid of it, we should be too." The human fleet floated silently in the aftermath, its ships battered and scarred. The crew on the flagship worked quietly, repairing damage and tending to the wounded. No one spoke much. The memory of the vortex, the void, still hung over them like a shadow. It had vanished, but the fear it left behind lingered. Karen sat alone in a small observation room, staring out at the stars. Her hands rested on her knees, trembling slightly. She couldn't stop replaying what had happened. The symbols, the warnings, the core. It all made sense now. The Valith hadn't built the megaship just as a weapon or a vault of knowledge. They had created it to contain something far more dangerous, something they couldn't destroy, only imprison. And she had let it loose. Lisa found her there after a while. She stepped inside quietly, closing the door behind her. "You okay?" she asked gently, though the question felt hollow. Karen didn't look up. "Do I seem okay?" Lisa hesitated, then sat down beside her. "Look, I don't blame you for what happened. None of us saw this coming. But I did, Karen said, her voice cracking. I saw the warnings. No one was meant to arrive. To silence the core is to awaken the void. I ignored them because I thought I could fix things. Instead, I might have doomed us all. Lisa didn't know how to respond. She glanced out the window, watching the distant stars shimmer faintly. What do you think the void is? What does it do? Karen shook her head. I don't know. But whatever it is, it scared the Valeth enough to build an entire ship around it. That tells me we're not ready to face it. On the bridge, Captain Cross paced back and forth, his mind racing. He had already sent out a distress signal to Earth, warning them about the Krill and the void. But he knew help wouldn't come quickly, if it came at all. For now, they were on their own. And with half their ships damaged and resources running low, survival was far from guaranteed. Ryan approached him, holding a tablet. Sir, we finished assessing the fleet's condition. 3 ships are too badly damaged to make the journey home. We'll need to scavenge parts if we want to repair the others. Cross nodded grimly. Do it. Strip everything you can. We're not leaving anyone behind. Ryan hesitated before adding, there's another problem. Fuel reserves are critically low. Even with repairs, we won't have enough to reach Earth unless we find a way to refuel. Cross sighed, rubbing his temples. Any ideas? We could try jumping to a nearby star system, Ryan suggested. If we're lucky, we might find a planet with resources we can use. It's risky, Cross said. But we don't have a choice. Plot a course. As the fleet prepared to move again, Karen returned to the bridge. Her face was pale, but her expression was determined. She approached Cross, clutching her tablet tightly. Sir, I need to tell you something. Cross turned to her, his eyes narrowing. What is it? I've been reviewing the data I collected from the Valeth ship, Karen said. Before the core collapsed, I managed to download part of its database. There's information here about the void, and maybe even how to stop it. Cross stared at her for a long moment. Are you sure? No, Karen admitted, but it's our best shot. If we can decode the rest of the data, we might find a way to contain the void, or at least understand what it is. Cross exchanged a glance with Ryan and Lisa. Finally, he nodded. Do it, but work fast. We don't know when, or where, the void will show up again. Karen nodded, relief washing over her briefly. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but at least they had a plan. As she returned to her station, she couldn't shake the feeling that the void wasn't done with them yet. Somewhere out there, it was waiting, and it was hungry. The journey to the nearby star system was tense and exhausting. The human fleet limped through space, its ships running on borrowed time. Fuel reserves were dangerously low, and every jump brought new risks. Karen spent most of her time hunched over her tablet, piecing together fragments of the Valeth database. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen for hours, but she couldn't stop. The answers they needed were buried in the alien language, and if she didn't find them soon, it might be too late. Lisa stayed by her side, helping where she could. Though she wasn't a scientist, her sharp mind made her good at spotting patterns. Together, they slowly began to unravel the mysteries hidden in the data. What they found was both fascinating and terrifying. The void isn't just energy, Karen explained one night as they worked. It's alive. Or at least, it behaves like something alive. The Valeth called it the Unmaker. It consumes everything it touches, planets, stars, entire civilizations. Lisa frowned, leaning closer to the tablet. But why? Why does it exist? Karen shook her head. I don't know yet, but there's more. The Valeth didn't just build the megaship to contain it. They also left instructions, a way to fight back if necessary. Fight back. Lisa echoed, her voice tinged with disbelief. How do you fight something that eats planets? That's what I'm trying to figure out, Karen said, pointing to a series of symbols on the screen. These look like coordinates. Maybe a location where we can find tools or weapons to use against the void. Before Lisa could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. Both women jumped to their feet and rushed to the bridge. When they arrived, Captain Cross was already issuing orders, his voice sharp and urgent. "We've got a problem," Ryan said, his face pale as he glanced up from his console. "Sensors are picking up gravitational anomalies ahead. It's the void. It's back." On the main screen, the swirling vortex appeared once more, larger and more menacing than before. Its edges shimmered with an eerie light, and its pull was already tugging at the fleet. The ships groaned under the strain, their engines straining to hold steady. "Full power to the thrusters," Cross shouted. "We need to break free." Karen stepped forward, clutching her tablet. "Wait, there's something else. Look at this." She pointed to the screen, highlighting a section of the Valith data. "The void isn't just random. It's drawn to energy sources, like our ships. If we shut down all non-essential systems, maybe we can slip past it." Cross hesitated, then nodded. "Do it. Shut everything down except life support and navigation." The crew scrambled to comply, plunging the ship into near darkness. The hum of the engines faded, leaving only the faint sound of breathing and the occasional beep of a console. Outside, the void loomed closer, its pull growing stronger. For a moment, it seemed like Karen's plan might fail. The fleet drifted helplessly, caught between the void's grasp and the cold emptiness of space. Then, slowly, the vortex began to recede. Its light dimmed, and the gravitational pull eased. "It's working," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling with relief. But Karen didn't celebrate. She stared at the screen, watching as the void faded into the distance. "This isn't over," she said softly. "It's learning. Next time, it'll be smarter." Cross turned to her, his expression grim. "Then we'd better be ready." As the fleet resumed its journey, Karen returned to her work with renewed determination. She knew the void would come for them again, and when it did, humanity's survival would depend on the secrets hidden in the Valith's ancient code. Months passed, and the battered fleet finally reached Earth. The journey had been long and grueling, but they made it home, barely. As their ships descended through the atmosphere, the crew stared out at the blue planet below, their hearts heavy with both relief and dread. They had survived, but the cost of their survival weighed on them like a shadow. Karen stood on the bridge of the flagship, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. She hadn't slept much during the trip back, spending every waking moment decoding the Valith data. What she had uncovered was both a warning and a glimmer of hope. The void wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a remnant of something older, something vast and incomprehensible. The Valith had tried to contain it, but even they had failed in the end. Humanity's only chance was to learn from their mistakes and fight smarter. Captain Cross approached her as the ship prepared to land. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were steady. "You did good, Karen," he said quietly. "We wouldn't have made it without you." Karen shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't feel like we won. The void is still out there, and now it knows about us." Cross didn't argue. He knew she was right. "We'll prepare. Earth has resources the fleet doesn't. If anyone can figure out how to stop that thing, it's you." When the fleet touched down, the world was waiting. News of their discovery and the threat of the void had spread quickly. Crowds gathered at the landing site, cheering for the returning heroes, but Karen couldn't bring herself to celebrate. She stepped off the ship alongside Cross and the others, her mind racing with everything she still needed to do. In the days that followed, Karen became the center of attention. Scientists, politicians, and military leaders bombarded her with questions, demanding answers about the Valith, the Krill, and the void. She shared what she knew, but it wasn't enough. The Valith database was incomplete, its secrets buried in fragments of alien language. Decoding it would take time, and time was a luxury they might not have. As weeks turned into months, humanity began to change. The threat of the void forced people to come together in ways they never had before. Nations pooled their resources, working tirelessly to develop new technologies based on what Karen had brought back. Engineers studied the schematics of the Violet megaship, while physicists tried to replicate its energy systems. Everyone knew the void would return, and when it did, Earth had to be ready. Karen spent most of her time in a lab, surrounded by screens and stacks of notes. She rarely left, even to sleep. Her thoughts were consumed by one question. Could they truly stop the Unmaker, or were they just delaying the inevitable? One night, as she stared out the window at the stars, Lisa found her. "You should get some rest," she said gently. "You've done more than anyone could ask." Karen sighed, her gaze fixed on the distant sky. What if it's not enough? What if we're just making things worse? Lisa hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "We don't know what's going to happen, but we got a fighting chance. And that's because of you. That's something." Karen didn't respond. She knew Lisa was trying to comfort her, but the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. The void was out there, watching, waiting, and Karen couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's survival depended entirely on her next move. As she turned back to her work, she reminded herself of one thing. They weren't giving up. Not yet. Whatever the future held, humanity would face it together, and maybe, just maybe, they'd find a way to win.